Hello, 80s kingpins and anchormen, coming to you from Burbank, California. This is a bonus episode of the Film vs. Film podcast. I am your host, Quinn Boys. I have seen over 24 movies in my life. Big for me, just cracked the 24 mark. And I am joined, as always, by my co-host and film aficionado, Leonard Smith Jr. What's up, Leonard?
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Leonard Smith Jr. We got a bonus episode today. This was a prompt that we thought we were going to do during the season, but it somehow slipped away from us. And it was season 3, so we decided to do Best Trio Movie.
Best Trio Movie, which you had to explain to me like a couple times because I was getting too much in my head. I thought you meant like Best Trilogy and then like which part of a trilogy, but explain to the people and me one more time what Best Trio Movie means.
Best Trio Movie would be like a movie that I thought maybe Quinn would have picked, like The Three Amigos, you know?
Never seen it.
You've never seen Three Amigos?
No. Is that weird?
Well, I feel like that's right up your alley.
I guess so. I don't love Chevy Chase, but I do love Steve Martin, and I like Martin Short a lot too. So
yeah,
2 out of 3.
Like Martin Short.
Yeah.
Okay,
Never seen
that's surprising. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, or like The Big Lebowski. You know.
Yeah.
Three Amigos is probably the best representation because it's the Three Amigos. So just a movie where three co-stars are headlining the film. You could even say maybe Harry Potter or like.
Harry Potter was one
Trek.
I thought about for a minute.
And I would have been very upset if you made me watch my first Harry Potter film on a bonus episode.
You've never seen a Harry Potter movie?
I've never seen a single Harry Potter movie.
How have we gone through 3 seasons of this podcast and
I shouldn't have told you that.
A few years of friendship, and I did not know that you've never seen a Harry Potter movie?
I honestly am saving it for when, hopefully, if this podcast or my stand-up comedy career takes off, I'm going to save it for a podcast, like just like a series of just
not our podcast. You're gonna save it for some other podcast.
Another podcast of me experiencing Harry Potter for the first time. Talking about
that is worthy of its own podcast. Is just you watching. I want you to. I take it. Have you read the books?
No.
Wow.
So, I was a cynical child.
We're not here to talk about this today, but now I just have a whole bunch of like pop culture term. Like, do you know what a Muggle is?
Is that a human?
Muggle.
It's a human being, right?
It's a designation person? Yeah. Okay. All right. So you know some things because you grew up in the time when it was the biggest thing in the world. I like to have sex
with women. They all love Harry Potter, so I know these things. No, I'm joking.
You're
Everyone
using
loves
Muggle
Harry
to get
Potter.
laid? Is how you
No, I'm not using it to get laid. I promise you. I promise you.
I just see Leonard at the bars wearing a big fucking Gryffindor scarf and
all right, so I know
Gryffindor
is like Harry Potter's Signia or whatever the fuck.
It's a house. It's a
house.
Yeah.
And that's like the good one. Mm-hmm. And I know Slytherin is bad.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's one more, isn't there?
There's 2 more.
Hold on. Gryffindor, Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
Ravenclaw, Slytherin.
You're not gonna get this last one. Not for $1 million.
I don't know. Claiborne?
It's a Scrumple-Dunk.
Scrumple-Dunk?
Yeah.
What?
Gryffindor, Slytherin.
How have I never heard that?
And
I would
Scrumple-Dunk.
remember that. Apparently,
I don't know.
No one likes Scrumple-Dunks because everyone. It's always. I thought there was only 3. I literally have only seen the 3.
There's 4 houses, and you really don't want to be in Scrumple-Dunk. All the like lame-os. That's why they named it that because
Scrumple-Dunk. Exactly, because it's for the lame kids. And some motherfuckers all think they Gryffindors or Slytherins when they really Scrumple-Dunks. Get your Scrumple-Dunk ass up out of here, boy. I'm gonna start using that. Oh, Scrumple-Dunk ass boy. Get your Scrumple-Dunk. Go play some Quidditch, bitch. Right? Quidditch? Is that it?
Please do. Please start using it. Put it out in the streets. I think you can get it.
Scrumple-Dunk ass. With your Scrumple-Dunk ass. All right. So we're doing Best Trios.
This Harry Potter conversation is to be continued in some way, shape, or form. But I guess I can't give you those movies. If you ever fucking lose a season, I will have to give you. Yeah.
Right. There's like 8 of them or 9 of them.
There's 8 films covering 7 books. They got a little greedy and they split the last book into 2 movies. But
I just knew what's her name was trash from the jump.
J.K.
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling. Yeah, you were on that one. You had.
I hated the Cosby Show. I hated the Cosby Show as a kid. Never watched it. Yeah, I hated the Cosby Show.
So what you are putting forward is that you can see like people who are beloved in their time but will become problematic years later. You can see that down the line. So if anyone that you have a bad feeling about is probably going to be canceled in the next 15 to 20 years.
And I mean, most people are pretty shitty, so it's not that hard. It's not that hard of a thing to do.
That's true. You might not be
just trying to find the good ones.
You might not be omniscient. You might just be very picky. You think most people are trash.
Exactly.
Okay, so best trio film.
Talking about trash people, we got some trash people in both these movies.
Yes, we do. Well segued. We're talking about films with. I interpreted this as like three main characters, but I guess it could be like a main character and two sidekicks. Like any movie that prominently features three people, and that was like this was. About as hard as I've thought of any prompt that we have had in the history of the Film versus Film podcast, because I kept being like, it's not an obvious genre. Like if you were to tell me best gangster film, I would be worried that I wasn't thinking of some, but there are those movies that just come straight to the front of your mind. And the problem with this is I have to think like, okay, yeah, best trio, you know, and you think about the Harry Potter, you think about the movies that obviously have like three kind of main people, but I was like, I'm going to forget one that definitely does. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes it's not, sometimes is it an ensemble or does it have three people? Is Ocean's 11 really 11 people, or is it George Clooney, Matt Damon, and Brad Pitt? You know, you got to think about it. Yeah. So I was racking my brain.
Did you ever think about Ferris Bueller's Day
I did think about Ferris Bueller's Day Off. You know why I didn't pick it? And the same reason I didn't pick Harry Potter, other than I probably wouldn't have picked it anyway, but is because the title is, it's not Ferris, Cameron, and oh man, what's his girlfriend's name in that movie? Is it Slow? Okay, but there's my point, I guess, right? Like, that was like, I feel like Matthew Broderick is the star, and then he's got like the two sidekicks. Now, that doesn't mean picking that movie would be wrong. I just think my own, like that.
I can see you worrying about that argument if this was like,
if this was a week that mattered.
Yeah. Which is why I had no thought about this with mine. I knew instantly what I was picking because I couldn't pick this movie for any other prompt we would ever do. Like normally, if this was like a real episode, I would have chosen like Harlem Nights.
Yes, Harlem Nights, which was like the genesis of this podcast isn't Harlem Nights the movie that no white people have seen, or is it something?
Yes, that's the one.
And you still have not given it to me, so I still haven't given seen it.
So it's gonna happen. You still haven't seen it. If it wasn't a bonus episode, I would have chosen that. But
I'm saving that for my spin-off podcast, by the way. I'm going to watch Harlem Nights. It's a one-episode podcast. And
I've been really wanting to use it, and I've kicked myself for a couple of times for not using it, but I hopefully will use it next season. Also, neither one of us has picked The Big Lebowski, which also could have been a trio film. Even though that is hard, you know, the argument it's about Lebowski, about the dude. No one calls him Lebowski. I picked this movie because I love this movie. It's not necessarily the best movie, but I've seen it so many times. It's just a hood classic. And I feel like this kind of represents the whole Harlem Night, Princess Bride thing of our choices because they are so different. So different.
Yes, this is a weird week. This is a weird double feature this week.
I chose the film Paid in Full. Okay, so if you guys don't know about the movie Paid in Full, it is a trio movie starring Mekhi Phifer, rapper Cameron, and the amazing actor Ed Harris. Let me look up the information on who directed it because I just had looked it up. Okay, yeah, Paid in Full is I'm doing a really bad job right now.
That's all right. It's a bonus episode.
How did you feel about my choice? Had you ever heard of this movie, or?
I had never heard of this movie. No, in like 2002, I was
Wood Harris. I said Ed Harris, I believe. Wood Harris.
Yeah, Ed Harris and Wood Harris are two very different people. But I am very familiar with some of the talent in this movie. Like I remember when Mekhi Phifer was hot. You know what I mean? Like I remember. Yes. Wood Harris, this was around the time. I did not watch The Wire when it was airing. I'm not even going to pretend. But this was around that time, so it makes sense that he was, and also Wood Harris is also in, like, Remember the Titans and stuff, right? Like, he was, this I feel like also was his.
Wood Harris is an amazing actor.
He's really good. Yeah, no doubt. But I guess, I mean, like, this was also kind of his heyday, early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s. He's still, I just saw him in Space Jam. He's still
he
making
was in
movies.
Space Jam. I haven't seen Space Jam, but I saw that he was in it.
He is in it. He's in it for a minute.
He plays the father figure or whatever.
He's the coach that takes LeBron's Game Boy away. But anyway, tells him, you got to focus on basketball. But as if LeBron needed to be told to focus on basketball. But
he did.
I guess he probably did at some point. But so the point is, like, yes, I remember like this. We've talked about this before. If you grew up in the lily white suburbs of New Jersey, as I did, the advertisements for Paid in Full were probably not getting to my local Nickelodeon station at that time. So this movie came and went without me being really ever that aware of it. I was also only 11 when it came out, so I think it would have been. I was a few years away from this movie anyway.
Yes.
But you were right in this was like prime movie for you, I take it. Did you see it in theaters, or did it come to you word of mouth after the fact?
Oh, no, I did not see this when it came out. I was probably still too young to have access to it. I mean, maybe not too young. I was like 16, I think, 15. But I think it was only I don't even think it was in theaters long enough. It made $3.1 million in the theaters. Produced by Rockefeller Records, Dame Dash, and Jay-Z. Miramax, I guess, bought it or had something to do with it, maybe during the production or afterward. I think it was released through Miramax. But I saw it for sure, like at first maybe on BET or some shit, and then like eventually got the DVD. And it's just like one of those movies that came on BET all the time. And then I've seen this movie a dozen times, 15 times. So it's just a classic. I think it's a great story. It's not. I don't know.
It's a true story.
It's the best film. It's a true story. I didn't rewatch it this week because I've seen it so many times and I didn't have time. Mm-hmm. But I know the movie like the back of my hand. I could narrate the whole thing. So it's just a short, quick movie to watch. I always get upset, and Money Making Mitch. It's a story of I'll let you tell it what you thought about it, and then I'll talk about broadcast news. So talk about the movie.
We'll talk about your pick first. So I had not seen this movie, as I mentioned. It is a familiar, like you could go all the way back to like Scarface, the Pacino movie, which is referenced directly in this movie. You could even go further back to like the original gangster Scarface from like the 1930s. Like it's that kind of very common cautionary tale. It takes place in Harlem in 1986. I think reading a little bit about the real events, it sort of spanned the 80s, but it's about kind of on the straight and narrow. He works at a dry cleaner. He's trying to do right. His name is Ace, played by Wood Harris. I would say he's the main character, and it's about him kind of hustling for a mediocre life. Like he can't provide for the people he loves. He's in love with his best friend Mitch's sister, but like he doesn't really have a lot going on. And then Mitch, played by Mekhi Phifer, goes away for a little while. Ace kind of gets by happenstance. He's dry cleaning a guy's pants and some crack rock falls out. But
a big ass ball of cocaine.
Yeah,
it's like a lot. It's like an ounce of cocaine.
He just leaves it in his pants and he brings it back to the guy, and the guy's like, "Hey, if you find it in the pants, it's yours, man." It's like, okay.
Like this is a real interesting way to try to get like people
people
to supply.
It did seem orchestrated.
It was weird.
But yeah, so he winds up kind of getting involved himself, and then as tends to happen, he gets way in over his head. Mitch comes out of prison. He's got with him this kind of wild card played by Cameron, which actually it took me. I'm not that familiar with Cameron, or at least early 2000s. I did not recognize him as Cameron right away. Is all, I guess what I'm saying. So. Okay. I have heard Cameron usually featured on other artists' songs. Like I don't have like a lot of Cameron. So I did not realize that's who it was until like.
You ain't rocking with the Dipset?
I got nothing against the more I talk about Cameron, the more I'm exposing myself. But yeah, no, I like half of the movie I'm like, this is somebody, because he plays Rico. He plays kind of the muscle that Mitch meets in prison. He ingratiates himself to Mitch by helping him shiv a couple guys in a cafeteria fight. And so then they get out of jail, and they are the kind of the trio that Leonard's talking about. And Rico is that friend that everybody has, whether you're a drug dealer or you just hang around and play video games and you don't do anything. Rico's that guy who's like too wild, and you're sort of like wary of him. Like Rico in the film is bringing a sex tape that he's like playing for everybody at the club, just so that they can all watch and comment on his form. Like, and
he's that one friend you don't want to bring bring around your other friends. Like, I don't want people to know I hang out with this guy.
And he's the wild card for sure. He's the wild
card. But you forgot to mention, while his friend Mitch is a drug dealer and he's killing the game.
Yes.
He goes to jail. And while he's in jail, Ace is like, I don't want to have anything to do with it. When he finds the crack rock, he starts selling and then it takes off. Like, he's doing really well the entire time Mitch is in jail. Yeah. So when Mitch and Rico come out, he's kind of running.
He kind of fills the power vacuum that Mitch leaves behind. And a movie
and exceeds his where he was at.
For sure. And the movie could have made, well, and again, it's based on a true story, so it happens like it happens, but it's kind of a refreshing, I get, like, a version of that story would have been like Mitch gets out of prison and he goes, "Oh, you took over my spot. Now we're beefing." But instead, it's like they have a real brotherhood, and they just share the wealth, basically. I mean, Ace is, I guess, the newly established number one, but Mitch doesn't have a problem kind of slotting right in next to him. And Rico is sort of their muscle, and Rico is also their downfall. So this movie,
he's power hungry.
Yeah, and this movie, this prompt doesn't. We're not really going to be arguing about your pick versus. We might be talking about the differences in our movies, but like, there's no reason. We're not taking down one movie to talk about the other. No one's trying to win here. But I would say, like, if we were, you picked a spot on movie because the relationship of the three of them and how Rico kind of like poisons the well. It definitely makes this a movie about the three of them. Even though I would say it's mostly it's mostly Ace's movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's like. I guess we could go through the rest of the plot, but we'll talk happens, about it later. Like the downfall comes, people get killed, people get shot in the head and somehow live. there's a lot of wild shit going. But I enjoyed it. It's funny because you said it was short. It is short, and I feel like if I had a complaint about this movie, it's that I could have. I'm very rarely in the age of like Avengers movies being 3 hours. I'm very rarely like, give me more of a movie. I like a movie that's like a crisp 90 minutes. You can just watch it and go away. Weirdly, I thought this movie would have been aided by like 30 minutes with you could like flesh out a little bit of like the rise and fall a little bit more, because I feel like the end of that movie comes quick. And there are scenes that I wish had been dragged out. Like, spoilers for both of these movies, of course. If you've seen them, if you care to see them, you can see them and watch. But if not, Mitch gets got, and I kind of wish that was built up a little bit more and a little bit more dramatic. And so there's scenes like that where I think you could put time
I cry every time that happens, man. Every time, man. He's just trying to save his nephew, man.
And his nephew, too. Like, not only does he get killed, he does not save his nephew, who is tortured.
His nephew gets killed. He gets tortured and killed. It's fucked up.
It's bad.
They could have fleshed out the like rise or the process of the rise to power, or them being in power together, and they could have fleshed out the falling when the plug gets killed and then he gets net. They could have, that happened it was very abrupt how like all of a sudden it was like, oh, Rico's an issue. Oh shit, his nephew's been kidnapped. Just like, wait, what? It's just like super.
And his nephew gets kidnapped like right after Ace gets like shot and like left for dead, and somehow he survives. But his like aunt, and is that his mother? I admit I don't know. There are two women who are in his apartment who just get killed, executed.
Yeah. I forgot that happens before that.
Yeah, and then he's like literally out of the hospital. He's got like a big old bandage on his forehead, like right on his forehead. It doesn't look like a bullet skimmed him. It looks like he got shot in the forehead above the eye, and they just put a big gauze patch on it. And they're like, "You're lucky to be alive." And it's like, how? How is he alive? Because he's not just alive like on a ventilator. He's walking around. He's talking. Yeah. He's like, how has this happened?
They're like, he's like sitting there like half dead, and they're like, all right, man, where can we get these keys? We need the keys.
I wrote it down at one point, and so Rico, played by Cameron.
If you don't know what keys are, it's kilos of cocaine.
Oh yes, I did at certain points when they said keys think about like keys to like a Foot Locker that has the drugs in it. So this film was produced by Rockefeller Films. Now I think we're familiar with the label Rockefeller. I did not know they made movies, and maybe they didn't make that many movies, but they made this movie,
Oh, they made movies.
And apparently, A.Z. Faizon, who is the person who wrote the original screenplay on whom Ace is based, he's like the real Ace from the true story. He had a problem with like them putting Cameron in this movie because he thought like they fleshed out that character so that they could just like Rockefeller could just promote their up and coming artist Cameron. And I was like, I could kind of see that a little bit. He gets some of the more fun, flashier scenes. But I lost my own train of thought, Leonard. Help me out. Where was I going? Something about this. The movie moves. I wrote it down. When Ace gets out of the hospital, he's sitting there. He's got a bandage in his throat and he's got a bandage on his forehead. Cameron's telling him like, it's all good. I got the guy that did this to you, which was another thing I kind of they just showed in a flashback, but I kind of wish that had been maybe built up a little bit more too. Yeah. But he goes, so literally he's just been shot. He's like on his futon in his apartment. And he goes, all right, man, you're going to be good. We're going to get you some soup. Give him a thermometer. Check his temperature. It's like, this guy's gotten shot twice. We're going to give him chicken noodle soup. That's not going to help.
I just love how it's just so funny how he clearly doesn't give a fuck about Ace at all.
Yeah, that's the takeaway. I just love how he expresses it. Like, get this guy some soup.
He'll be good. You know what I'm saying?
Check his temperature. Check his temperature in the hole in his head from a bullet that just went through. There's no exit wound on that bullet, by the way. Is it just in his skull?
Oh, man. Oh. Okay. We've talked about Paid in Full. We haven't even talked about your film or even named it, and I was very shocked by your choice.
I was a little surprised myself.
I had never heard of this film somehow. Whatever happened to... Well, I'm not going to... All right, so what was your film, Quinn?
I gave you... So your film takes place in the 80s, and it's about drug kingpins in Harlem and all the follies that ensue. My film also takes place in the 80s. Yours was made in 2002, depicting the 80s. Mine is from 1987. I am talking about the James L. Brooks rom-com classic, Broadcast News, starring William Hurt, Holly Hunter, and Albert Brooks. Those are our three main characters. They are playing Tom, Jane, and Aaron. And it's basically just about, it's Leonard. It's a different kind of hustle. All right. It's about getting that anchor position, producing the news. And it's, I don't know. This is James L. Brooks makes very specific kind of like slice of life comedies. And so this is
it's all about the dialogue.
It's all about the dialogue. I think it's all about Holly Hunter's performance. She definitely, in the same way that like Ace is actually the main character of Paid in Full, this is Jane Craig's movie. This is Holly Hunter's movie.
Yeah, 100%.
And you know why I picked it, to be totally honest? I love this movie. I think it's a great movie. I don't know that I would have picked it for like many other prompts, but when you said trio movies and I was racking my brain, I thought to the first how this movie begins and how it sets up the dynamic of the three leads. It shows Jane, Tom, and Aaron all as kids, and it shows them kind of having that same kind of lifestyle that they will grow up to have as adults, and I love that. I specifically love the William Hurt, kind of against type, because I feel like he usually plays like hard asses or like
he usually plays a villain or
mean
like
fathers
guy.
Or But in this one, it's 1987, so he's still young and he's still good looking. So they have this whole thing about how he's a kid, like all the girls chase after him, and how he's not very bright. Like the girls are,
But he tries hard.
But he tries hard, but he's not that smart, and
he
so
beats himself up about it.
Yeah, and people are like, they told me that I'd have to beat him off with a stick. Like he's like that good looking. Girls are throwing himself. First of all, I don't know if William Hurt
is that good looking.
Yeah, I don't know if he. Once we see him grown up, fulfills the prophecy of being like.
He's attractive.
The world's sexiest man, but yeah, he's a good-looking guy. And so
they couldn't get Harrison Ford. He was already doing Working Girl.
Yes, yeah. Honestly, this movie is probably the closest to Working Girl, which you submitted, and that was me going for you. Like, how did you see this? How is this a movie that's in your? Is this on your DVD shelf next to Paid in Full and All About the Benjamins?
Layers.
So I don't know what. Basically, it's about Jane Craig. She's a producer. She's a woman in the kind of cutthroat world of broadcast.
Well, you talked about yours, so I'll talk about.
Yeah, you talked
about mine. So yes, the movie follows these three characters. I forgot the name of the characters. Craig is Aaron. Craig.
And then William Hurt plays Tom Grenick.
Tom, yes. Tom, Aaron, and Jane. Tom, we've already talked about, pretty, but dumb. Jane is just kind of like a know-it-all. She just wants to. It starts out with her like being like, I have to finish typing up all these letters to my pen pals. Like, she's worldly, and like her dad like says something, and she's just like comes down and is like very direct with her father about how she feels and how he's doing whatever he's parenting wrong.
Yeah,
and then like kisses him and then goes back up.
She's like a Lisa Simpson type, like as a kid.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It was really crazy watching this because I don't know if you watched Mr. Mayor, but
no.
She's on Mr. Mayor. She literally is like playing this character.
Oh, really? That's
kind of
cool.
like, yeah, she's so funny on it. She's great on it. And then we meet Aaron, who's like graduating valedictorian from his high school at 15 years old, and is at his commencement speech. He's like just talking this shit about his class and how nobody liked him and how that was going to change. And then he gets beat up afterward. And he's like, none of you guys are ever going to make money, and I'm going to have a great life. And we go on later to see them, and Tom is meeting Jane, and she doesn't realize that he has been hired at her station, and he's like very honest with her about like how he's lucked into this job, and he doesn't know shit about anything, and he's not smart. And she was just like, well, fucking do something about it. And then he tells her that they're working together. She's basically like, you're dumb, it's sorry, but do something about it. And he's like, well, that's great, just want to let you know we're working together. And there was like, she gives this speech about how, okay, that's a major part of the storyline. Is it starts with her giving the speech to all of like her colleagues about, which is, man, the foresight. It's crazy.
Yeah,
about how
the movie is very prescient. That was also why I gave it to you. But yeah, keep going.
What was the word you just said?
Prescient.
Prescient.
Like
Ooh,
the movie could see the future. Like it was before its time, and it was spot on about the points it was making.
It was so spot on about the points it was making, about how news was turning into entertainment, and she had an issue with that, and how it should all be about the story, and the anchors and the reporters should not be celebrities, and we shouldn't be covering this
sensationalist stories and stuff.
Sensationalist
For
stories.
ratings.
For ratings. It should be about the news and getting the information out to the people. And nobody gave a fuck. And everyone disliked her. And then Tom was like, no, that was great what you were saying. And he was just very honest about who he was. And then it turns out they're working. There was an attraction there.
Yep.
It's kind of weird. And then they found out that they're working together. And then we see Aaron and Jane. They're like best friends.
Yep.
They both work at the station together. She's a producer. He's a reporter, and Tom is an anchorman. And Aaron is in love with Jane. She doesn't have, like, they're just, to her, they're friends. They're still best friends. At one point, he professes his love. It's pretty obvious. They have a really weird relationship where they're, like, very honest, and they communicate their feelings instantaneously and on the spot. Like, I was like, were people just better adults back then? Like, everybody just communicated their feelings so well in this movie. Like, instantaneously. It was wild.
Yeah. It's I don't know, but I know that it's not something that we see a lot. They are very emotionally forthcoming, which is, I guess, maybe that's a hallmark of James L. Brooks. I don't know. I know he tends to make these kinds of like intelligent adult rom-coms, but they're still very like much. Yeah,
I don't even. It's wild that this is even a rom com because like there are.
I know there's
parts, but it's not even really that funny.
It's
but it's good.
It's not. It doesn't hit the comedy or the romance that hard. Like it's pretty like true to life. Like I feel like it prefers.
No one has sex with each other in this movie. Like none of. Anyways, so basically, there's this weird love triangle where Jane doesn't want it, wishes that she wasn't attracted to Tom, but she is, and Tom is attracted to Jane, but she doesn't want him, and Aaron wants Jane, but Jane doesn't want Aaron. It's all weird, and there's all these different things that happen to where it's like, will they or won't they, Tom and Jane, and they never end up consummating the act.
The closest they have to sex scene is that scene where there's breaking news while everyone else is away, so Jane is like in Tom's ear as he's giving the update. Like Jack Nicholson has a cameo in this movie.
Jack Nicholson and Joan Cusack is in this.
And Joan Cusack, which is the working girl.
That was funny. the initial scene where she has to run
She
the
has
tape.
to run the tape to
Dude, that was fucking hilarious.
I love her little moment, like after she runs like an obstacle course to get the tape in time so that they can enter it, so that when the anchors throw to it for her piece, it cues up. And then she's got that moment where she does it, and she's just sort of like, yeah, no, like she sort of has like a few moments. Like Joan Cusack is wonderful in this movie. She's great.
So good. So good.
But yeah, there's that scene where Jane is as his producer. She's in Tom's ear as Tom is like calling breaking news because Jack Nicholson is out in the field. He's somewhere else. And so it's like Tom's big break, and it leads to Tom, the good-natured but not that intelligent, as has been discussed, and not that like principled. Certainly not as much as like Aaron and Jane are. But he calls a really good new. You know, they tell him like sit on the back of your shirt. That's where I learned that too, by the way. If you're trying to keep your suit not to rumple, you sit on the back of your suit so that your shirt gets pulled up in all the right places.
Yeah.
But after she coaxes him through it, he's like, "That's better than sex, right?" Doesn't he say something? Yeah. Or she's like, "Well,"
he was almost as great as sex, or it felt like great sex, and it was like the energy between them two. Also, in the 80s, people just got really close to each other or something. Like, that was wild. They were like, it was just like, wow, there's some energy here.
It was a different time. We don't even record our podcast in the same room. We don't get
So it's kind of like a will they or won't they, and then there's also about the morality of news, and Tom doesn't have the same morals as Jane, and it seems like that they're gonna fall in love and go away together. And Tom had done this piece on date rape, which apparently people didn't know about in 1987. It was eye-opening to people, but it was a very good piece, and it was emotional. And at a point during the piece, you see him cry, and they cut to him, and Aaron was like, "I don't know why they had to cut to you. Mm-hmm. You know, like you're not the subject of the story. Mm-hmm. Nobody, like we don't need to be seeing your emotions, your viewpoint." And he says that, and then later on, he's like, "With that camera crew, was there two cameras, one camera?" And then he realizes he tells them that there's only one camera, and he realizes, well, then how did you get that shot? And that it had to be fabricated. And Aaron, who was very upset when Jane told him that she was in love with Tom, and he told her that he was the devil, and they had this big argument, and he saved it and didn't say it. And once he figured it out that Jane was really going to go with Tom, he finally told her.
Yeah.
And she went and watched the footage and realized it, and her conscience couldn't let her do it. She couldn't let her be with Tom.
It's a kind of like you were saying, it's a hard movie to classify. I would call it a rom-com, but it's certainly not a rom-com in the same way that like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is a rom-com, right? Like it's not that interested. I think it's honestly the thing that it's most interested in, the movie, is like the state of news in 1987. Like that seems to be, and then it's going to build it's going to give you some romantic subplots and some kind of funny moments like Joan Cusack running around the newsroom to kind of keep the movie entertaining. But I appreciate it most kind of as like a look about news. I am not, I took some journalism classes in high school, and I think I took it a journalism elective. So it's one thing for me to pound my chest about the state of news today, because I don't know anything, but I think these ideas that the movie deals with are easy to get behind, right? Like, this should be about the story. We shouldn't be sensationalizing things. We shouldn't be doing it for ratings. It's not action news. And so, yeah, that I think it's a testament to and I'm curious to think what you thought of the movie overall, but like, to me, it's a testament to the movie working when you find out that they faked that, or they went back and they captured that shot of Tom. And doesn't he say, because just like you didn't rewatch Paid in Full, I didn't rewatch Broadcast News. I've seen it like a couple years ago, most recently. So we both are on bonus episode time. We're not giving our 100%. We're a couple scrumple dunks right now. But like, doesn't he say that he was crying, but they didn't have it, so he needed to go back and get it again? Wasn't that his story? Or
the story was, she was like, "Oh, your reaction, you were almost about to cry."
That's right.
So
you
he didn't
almost
actually
crying.
Cry, and then he made himself cry.
And the fact that what to most people, certainly in today's news landscape, but like the fact that feels like a big drama within the movie, to me, is why the movie works, because they actually make it feel like, I was like, oh man, Tom is a fucking scum because he like made himself cry. And I guess that's also because how much our society has changed in the past, like, 34 years since this movie came out. But I think it also speaks to how effectively the movie makes the stakes of the movie, the stakes for the characters, feel like stakes to us. And I appreciated that there is no happy ending. She doesn't get with either of them. And you kind of don't want... Jane is the one we're rooting for. And, like, Aaron gets her, but she's not attracted to Aaron. And that's what it is.
And he's just... mean.
Yeah, and he's mean about it, and he's got a little bit of, like, we're talking about other ways that this movie kind of predicted the future. Aaron is...
He has an inferiority complex.
And he's a little bit of that, like, nice guy thing, you know, when, like, a woman's not interested in a guy and goes, oh, you don't like nice guys. You just want guys that'll treat you like shit. Like, that's Aaron in this movie a little bit.
Yeah, as soon as she tells him that she, like, is in love with Tom, he's like, get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
He's
and then
a
he
total
instantly
nice
is
guy
like,
thing.
okay, sorry. And then he's like, all right, come back.
He's the guy who's friends with a woman because he expects eventually she's going to put out for him and come around to love him. It's like, if that's why you're doing it, then you don't deserve the love, man.
This isn't a real friendship, my guy.
And so I appreciate that the movie, even in 1987, before we kind of had... I mean, I'm sure women have been onto these guys forever, but I don't think that was like an archetype that was talked about that much back then. Yeah. So the movie was kind of on that a little bit early. And then also I like that Tom is... There are no villains in this movie, I guess, but Tom is the shady character, but he's also not a bad guy. Like, he's not really a dick. He just doesn't have the same scruples that the other two have. So you don't want him to succeed either, but it's not like he's like maniacally laughing and I have this master plan to bend news towards my will. He's just trying to be successful like everybody else. He just doesn't have the smarts to do it in the same way. So, like, you don't want him to succeed, but you're also not like, he's evil. Like, and that's how bad shit happens. It's like nice, charismatic people that don't do things the right way get promoted because they're good looking and cool and whatever.
It was wild how, like, all these characters had their flaws, but, like, you didn't, like, hate any of them. I mean, I felt like you kind of maybe hated Aaron a little bit, if anybody, but you kind of understood their viewpoints and, like, where they were coming from.
Yeah, I feel like Aaron was often right. And that was the problem, is, like, as a romantic lead, you're like, nah, this guy's all wrong. But a lot of the things he was saying about, you know, he seemed to take the most principled stances that I was like, yeah, I can get behind that. And he was, like, telling Holly Hunter when she's, like, being led astray, but... Yeah.
So how did you feel about Paid in Full watching it for the first time?
I enjoyed it. I think I said, like, I feel like I wished it was longer, and I'm trying to think of when that first set in. I really like the beginning. I like the kind of mood setting, like how it kind of set the scene. There's a great, like, the first scene is our three main characters just having Chinese food and arguing.
That's such a great fucking scene.
Yeah, and they're all really good, and they have good chemistry together. And I like Wood Harris. I think, I've seen...
The initial scene is they're all eating Chinese food together. They all, like, just came from the club, probably a little tipsy. They all got their big chains on. Life is good. And they start betting. Somebody throws a napkin in the trash can, like, balls it up, shoots it. And then they just start betting $10,000 per shot on who can get a napkin in the trash can.
Yeah.
And they just, like, start doubling down, and it gets to, like, $40,000 or, like, $50,000. And it's just like, damn, life is good. And then...
Well, because you think they might just be, they're eating Chinese food in an apartment that's nice but not, like, high-end. And you're thinking, like, these are just three guys kind of shooting the shit. And then when Ace makes that shot, Rico's like, you can't hit that shot again. I give you $5,000. So you're like, oh, they're just talking big game. But then he takes out a wad of bills and he puts it on the table. And it's like a thick, fat wad of what must be $5,000 in bills. And so you're like, oh, okay, these guys are up to... Nobody has that much cash rubber banded in hand like that. So now you're like, all right, these guys are in the drug game. And I thought that was like a cool way to introduce that. I like a lot of the... supporting characters. Regina Hall is in this movie.
Yeah, she was great.
Regina Hall is always good. Chi McBride plays Pip. So there's another thing. He is the owner of the dry cleaner where Ace works. There's just a certain point when Ace, like, gets too big, you never see Chi McBride again, and he seems like maybe I don't have to say father figure, but a mentor figure, a kind of stick on the right path. Don't fall off the line. And I kind of wish that we'd seen him again after Ace leaves his shop, which was probably like 30 minutes into the movie. And I don't think, unless I missed it, I don't think we see him again.
I think you see him like one
towards the end.
Yeah, no, that when he gets fired, that's the last time you see him. Or when he quits
also
or gets
calls,
fired.
and I guess it's 1986, but it's funny because he calls Ace is listening to hip hop in the. And so I think there's this. If it's not the scene when he quits, it's the scene before. But he tells him, he goes, "Turn that shit off. Turn off this boopity boop shit." That's like, I was like, I guess that's probably what people call hip hop in the 80s, boopity boop shit. That's like more likely. I don't know. That stuck with me. But
Also,
yeah.
Kevin Carroll is Calvin.
Yeah, dude. Kevin Carroll's Calvin, and I'm sure you know him from a lot of other different things. But I just finished recently in pandemic. I've been catching up on the TV that I've been behind on. I just finished The Leftovers, and I recognize him from The Leftovers, dude.
Holy shit!
20 years later,
so good. I need to go back and rewatch it, man.
He's in seasons 2 and 3. He's great.
Yeah.
He plays John, I think is the name of his character in Leftovers. And I had not really seen him in anything else. So when I see him with those big glasses with the gold rims and he's dating Ace's sister in the beginning of the movie, I'm like, who is this guy? Why does this guy look familiar? And then it's like, it's that smile, man. I was like, oh shit, that's Kevin Carroll. What else has he been in? Help me out, because I should go see more Kevin Carroll movies.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Blind Spotting. He's in that. He's really good in that. He's in Snowfall. I think he was in The Walking Dead. He was on The Walking Dead for a while.
Oh, okay, sure. Well, that's funny because obviously Ace Wood Harris, who we've talked about a lot, was Avon Barksdale, and I do think this movie, no shots at this movie. Like any gangster movie suffers in comparison to The Wire because The Wire so painstakingly takes you through every layer of criminality and cops and the union guys and all that. Everybody knows The Wire. But so to see him have like the kind of, it's interesting when The Wire starts, Avon Barksdale is already the guy. So this is an interesting play. Like Wood Harris gets to play maybe, I know he's not playing Avon, but like a younger version of Avon. How did he get his start? Like he kind of, so it's fun to watch him do the come up because you don't really see that in The Wire. He's already established and you only get to see the downfall. And this movie takes all that and kind of puts it into 90 minutes and it's very tight. But I think those bona fides, the fact that like Wood Harris is just really good at playing these kinds of characters as well as other things, but like we've seen him play this character so well on The Wire. It was cool to watch this entirely focused on him because The Wire shifts its perspectives all over.
Exactly. And in this one, he's a different character, but like kind of the same. He's a kinder character, still very like well calculated and smart. Both characters were like that, but Avon was a lot more ruthless.
Right.
Than Ace was.
Avon is a more hardened character. So, and then I guess, gives a little bit of love to Mekhi Phifer too, who again, like, I feel like
he was,
is this the same year 8 Mile came out? 2002?
I think it was like, no. I think 8 Mile, I feel like
maybe a couple years later. But anyway, before he was name checked in the Eminem song, like Mekhi Phifer is just an incredibly charismatic presence too.
2002 was a good year for
it. Was okay, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, 2002.
So I feel so. This was Mekhi Phifer's year, but no, I mean like I don't think he gets forgotten, but I think like I forgot, or maybe I never realized what a like charismatic presence he was in movies like this. It was cool seeing like Mekhi Phifer because he is playing the more, I don't know, like the movie didn't care that much about the morality of these guys or how they made their money, but there's that really good scene where is it his uncle? But it's Ice, right?
Ice. It's his uncle. Mitch's uncle.
Mitch's uncle is cozying up to Mitch's
Money
mom.
Making Mitch.
Money making Mitch. And Mitch sees him like basically shooting heroin in the bathroom, and Mitch's mom, his little brother still lives with his mom. Mitch is obviously out of the house, so he sees his uncle coming around, being a bad influence, getting his mom into drugs, and also doing drugs, shooting up in front of his 12-year-old brother, who we know later dies, unfortunately. But like, and so he kicks Ice out of the house. He's like throwing him around. He's roughing him up in the hallway, and Ice is like, "What do you care, man? I'm doing the drugs that you sold me." And I thought that was like an interesting, like, again, if this movie had more time, it would have been kind of cool to see if that like weighs on these guys, because the movie's not that into the morality, right? Like or Ace never gets a hard time from Regina Hall's character about, why are you selling drugs and getting shot when I'm literally having a baby the same day that you got shot? Like they they don't get a lot of flack from their significant others, their mothers, their girlfriends, their friends or whatever. And I felt like that moment was like a little taste of it. And then it obviously comes back to bite Mitch because Ice is the one who orchestrates kidnapping his little brother. So like it does come around, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's like I was in this movie. What kept me in this movie mostly was the performances, and particularly those two guys. I thought had a lot of good scenes together and separate.
It was great casting on both those parts for sure. They both killed it. It just felt really real. It felt like a real friendship. Like it felt like these. I mean, obviously it is a true story. You know, we don't know how much to the extent, but it just felt real, and it just felt like maybe they probably worked together on some stuff. There was just a rapport between the two, and they both just did really well at acting at both of the roles. That Money Making Mitch felt like a real person to me, and so when Rico, who everybody's so after Ace gets shot, their plug gets killed. He only has a certain amount of kilos. Ace is trying to find goes to his plug supplier, his dealer supplier, to make a new connection. And, you know, the game is slowing down. He's taking a break because he just got fucking shot and people were murdered in his apartment. And Mitch, it's all about the timing. Mitch then, who I guess, you know, they're blowing money because they're expecting that they're going to keep making money hand over fist. And then when the supply dries up, this is the same time that Mitch's nephew gets kidnapped and he just needs money he's just trying to get this money so he can get his nephew back because he truly loves his nephew. And it's like probably the only person he seems to care about in the world.
Wait, is it his nephew or his brother? I've been calling him his brother the whole time.
Damn, no, my bad. His brother. I said nephew. I meant his brother.
It's all good. I might be
wrong. Ice's nephew.
Yeah.
No, it's Ice's nephew. His brother, which makes sense. It's his brother. He loves him. And he goes, and Rico, being Rico, is also just power hungry and is trying to make moves and trying to make money. Mitch thinks he can get a deal. He has some keys and he can sell them. He gets a hold of a couple of keys from Ace, and Rico finds out, and then Rico murders fucking Mitch because he wants the keys. I don't know why I don't understand why Rico did it and needed the keys so badly.
Yeah.
But he just like that part really didn't make too much sense.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like there needs to be more content. Like so because Ace gets shot by Kevin Carroll's character, who is named Calvin. So Ace gets shot by Calvin because he felt that he disrespected him and he wasn't putting him on enough once Ace became like the main game in town. And
also Calvin was hella disrespectful to Ace before that, but that's
for sure.
Reason why.
For sure. But like, so that was their own drama. So it doesn't make sense, especially because Rico got revenge for that. Rico straight up shoots him in the face. Shoots him like a bunch of times in the car. And so Rico wasn't part of that. So then when Rico flips and shoots up Mitch, I was like, so wait, was Rico, like, is there like some conspiracy against these guys?
I think Rico just only cares about Rico.
Yeah, clearly.
That's
like
the thing.
But like, was it a crime of opportunity? Like he found out about these keys, or was he always planning
to do it? I think it was a crime of opportunity.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah. And then Ace winds up like giving Rico a false tip and getting him into like a Fed sting where he gets
those
held
two
up
feds who kept trying to sell him kilos.
Yeah, the guys that were fishy from the beginning.
Yeah.
And so not a happy ending exactly, but I did like the very ending of the film, which is like now we're on those same Harlem streets in 2002. Ace is looking great. Obviously, it's been 15 years, but his gunshots have healed so completely that you can't even see any scar on his forehead. But there's nothing on his neck. But he's watching a music video being filmed on the same streets that he used to run, and it's like guys, you know, it's 2002. It's supposed to be like present day, like guys throwing money in the air, and they've got like the big jackets, and they've got like all the dancers around them, and they're acting tough. And he's sort of like, oh, now on the same streets, people are basically like mean mugging. They're pretending, and like this used to be the actual. So I kind of like the commentary in that. But yeah, it feels like we got there all very quickly.
Wood Harris did a great job at narrating too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
there was a little bit of like a sort of like a Scorsese kind of Goodfellas, like ever since I could remember I wanted to be a gangster kind of narration to it that really only in the beginning and the end, right?
Beginning and the end. It's the beginning and the end, really. I think there's some points where they like cut away and he's like, after he gets shot, I think he like narrates a little bit.
Be like, I'll be all right.
Yeah.
Maybe the whole end of the movie takes place in his mind as he's bleeding out on the bed after he got shot. All right.
So this movie was short. You went a little bit more. There was a weird part about that kind of I feel like dated the movie. Your movie broadcast news was
the shoulder.
This movie was
shoulder
made
pads and the jackets.
Well, no, that's expected. If this movie was made, I feel like anytime in the 2000s and on, the movie would have ended after she got into the taxi at the airport. Mm-hmm. It would have just ended right there. Mm-hmm. But then they go 7 years later and try to like give us this definitive end. Like, I didn't like that. It wasn't necessary. It was weird.
Yeah, remind me again how that goes. I know exactly what you're talking about. They meet at like a gazebo or something, right?
They meet at she's at the airport. She leaves. She tells the taxi, go this way. Or no, you go over the way you want. And then she's like, you know what? No, go that way. And then it cuts to 7 years later. Tom's like talking about how he's taking over for Bill and he's got a new fiance who's going to be the managing editor or whatever. And Aaron's there to meet him with his kid. Well, it's like, why is Aaron there? Or, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then he's living in Portland with his wife and his kid. And they go to meet Jane, who was just there to meet him and was supposed to have a picnic with the kid. And she's talking about some guy she's dating and how she's taking this great job in New York. And it's like, and then it just ends. And it was like, well, what the fuck was the point of that? I think it was just like back then, if you like made movies, everybody had to know that there was what happened completely, or like there's like it's a happy ending basically for everyone or something. Like he's getting married, he's married with a kid, she has a guy she likes, but she still has a career, and it was just weird. It was
a little, yeah. I feel like also like other movies would do the Animal House thing where you just like freeze frame on the characters and be like, Aaron is living in Portland with his wife and child, and they're doing whatever.
That's basically what it was.
Yeah,
it was, just like,
it was instead of like having the text tell you that, they're actually just like having a last scene with them, and it's kind of unlikely that. I guess it's a good question. So here's a fun fact. Also, like when I first got out of college, I worked at CBS in New York, the CBS building in Hell's Kitchen. I was a network page, which is sort of like Kenneth the NBC page from 30 Rock, except much less glamorous. I mean, that job's not glamorous on 30 Rock, but like NBC pages are like Regis Philbin was an NBC page, and then he worked for the network for 50 years. CBS pages, they keep you in the basement. You're in a room with no windows, and then you like go, and I was like being I was like an usher for the Bethany Frankel show, which was filming out of the building at the time, or like 106 in Park used to film out of the CBS building. So we would just like basically be audience wranglers. Anyway, eventually I got like put on a like post. They gave me this post where I was like writing for this part of this like crime news reporting section of the website. And that was right before I was like, I need to get the hell out of here. I need to go to LA and start a podcast with Leonard. But before all that, I was working there, and the head of news was and is, I think she's actually been promoted. It was Susan Zorinsky, who's like been at CBS forever. She's this super cool, accomplished producer who's been there forever, and she's super nice. Like I was like the lowest person on the totem pole, and like she knew my name. Like before I left, I remember she like had me in her office. We had like a one-on-one. We were talking about stuff. She was just a super lovely woman who like invited everybody to her place on the Upper West Side for like a holiday party. Just super cool. And then I come to find years later that like broadcast news is based on her. Like a Holly Hunter, that character is based on Susan Zorinsky. Like I think James L. Brooks or whoever did like some research and like shadowed her to like find out. It's not a true story about her. Holly Hunter is still playing a unique character. It's not telling her life story, but it's like based on a lot of Susan Zorinsky's experiences. So I maybe that's also why I've had like a place for that movie. But yeah, it is weird to just end it like they're fine. I did like that like Tom is still kind of like sleazing his way up the ladder. Like he's married to another producer who's going to help his career kind of thing. Like none of the characters really changed that much. But yeah, it was interesting. Do you want to get into the stats for some of these movies, Leonard?
Yeah, let's knock it out quick because we're running at 50 minutes.
Oh man, we gotta get going. This is a bonus episode. This is not a full length. I hear you. I don't know what it was made for, but Paid in Full only made $3.1 million at the box office. Is that surprising to you?
Not surprising.
I'm
surprised it even went into theaters. I'm surprised it wasn't just a made-for-DVD film.
The soundtrack peaked at number 53 on the Billboard 200. I can't find the budget for the movie, but I can find the box office, $3.1 million. Broadcast News was made for $15 million, made $67 million. So that's pretty okay. For a movie with no nudity or action or gore. That was pretty good, I feel like. And a bunch of Oscar nominations in Broadcast News. Best Picture. It didn't win any of them. Best Picture. And also, I think this helps in the Best Trio. All of William Hurt, Albert Brooks, and Holly Hunter were nominated for acting awards. None of them won, nice. But I think that speaks to the power of all three of their performances together. And I think for stats, that's mostly it. I don't know.
I'll tell you the IMDb for... I'm kind of surprised at this for the IMDb rating for Paid in Full. It's 7.1.
Mm-hmm. I saw that too, yeah.
And then the Rotten Tomatoes is 53%.
Rotten Tomatoes is always going to get you. I mean, that's just the I guess I'll throw in the IMDb for Broadcast News is 7.2. So audience scores come out pretty even for these movies.
Did you see it's a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes? I guess not that many people have watched it. It's crazy. 98%.
Broadcast News?
Yeah.
I think it was a hit, but 98% is that's some across the board unanimous praise. Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know.
What links these movies, Leonard? I think we have to talk about what links these movies. Let's not even pretend we can decide which is better. Is this the strangest double feature we've ever done? I mean, we did.
This is probably the strangest double feature we've ever done.
We did Mamma Mia and Batman Forever. That was pretty weird.
Yeah.
But like weirdly,
what was paired with Homeward Bound? Oh, Vegas Vacation, which is also weird. A trio movie.
That one
was Homeward
weird.
Bound's trio movie.
Vegas Vacation's a trio? Oh, Homeward Bound's a trio movie.
Homeward Bound's a trio.
Oh, what if I just gave you the second Homeward Bound?
Oh, I wouldn't have watched it. I would not have watched it. Would have just fucking talked about it and acted like I watched. I would have read the synopsis.
I think we've done movies that are just as far apart or like just as like weirdly they don't pair. But these movies specifically, they don't. Like, there's no reason you would ever watch these movies back to back. They don't scratch the same itch.
You wouldn't watch these two movies in the same month. I feel like.
Except we did, but
they're both set in the 80s too, which is funny.
Yeah. All right.
But they were both good. I mean, I liked Broadcast News. It was good.
Yeah.
No complaints.
Yeah.
No complaints.
I like Paid in Full. I think we both expanded our horizons watching these movies.
Yes, we did.
At some point, maybe in season 4, you'll find a time to give me Harlem Nights. But until that point, I guess, is there any bookkeeping? We will probably be back for one other bonus episode. We've got to do my punishment episode. You don't have to watch anything, Leonard. Don't worry. I just need you to give me a time sometime in the next couple weeks where we can talk about me having to watch The Fault in Our Stars. And I know that's not the extent of my punishment. I got to go back and listen to the episode. I think there's some sort of a T-shirt that I need to wear or some social media profiles that I need to update, calling myself a loser. But we'll make sure that we're clear on that. But we will probably be back, and then hopefully next episode we'll have some news about maybe when to expect season 4, what we're thinking about that. Yeah, how's your summer been? You've been enjoying your summer?
It's been good, man. You know, quit one job, took a little vacation for like a month and went a bunch of places, did a bunch of things, and then started this new job. And it's cool. I'm liking it, you know, doing a bunch of stand-up. It's been great.
I've just seen you taking shots at your job. So I don't know that you're actually working. Every time you post on Instagram, your boss is giving you a shot. You're taking more shots to the head than Wood Harris in this movie.
There it is.
You're more affected by it. All right. Yeah. I was about to say.
How's your summer been?
It's been all right. It's been good, actually. I was home I was back in New Jersey for my buddy's bachelor party a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to be back in New Jersey again for the wedding in a few weeks next month. So good,
so
man.
The bachelor party wasn't too crazy.
Yeah, just trying to stay.
Didn't ruin the marriage.
No. It wasn't my bachelor party, but no.
I'm talking about his. No.
Didn't ruin his marriage. Of course not.
Yeah.
But yeah, hey. my bachelor party, nobody wound up on broadcast news, and hopefully, Leonard, with your new job, you get paid in full. I think that broke my thing.
So they pay you the big bucks.
It's refusing to continue recording this Zoom, so we should probably go. Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw, Sprunkledunk.
Scrunkledunk? What is it? Scrumpledunk.
Yeah. And we'll see you on the mean streets of Burbank. Until next time, see you at the cinema.